Hello and welcome to another edition of your favourite podcast, Insane in the Fembrain. Hello everybody, welcome to the show. Another edition of our wonderful podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. As you all know, Insane in the Membrane this month is the Insane in the Membrane takeover to celebrate Pride Month. It's called Insane in the Thembrain to celebrate the beautiful people who identify as non-binary. And what a wonderful thing it is. I'm learning so many new things and having wonderful conversations. It really is good fun, and I mean I'm learning a lot. It's great, and they're supporting the podcast. Anyway, so before that, I've got to let you know, this coming Thursday, 17th of June, Rich Wilson presents Dark Horse live comedy Under the Stars. Join me, Rich Wilson, the fantastic Jen Brister, Clinton Baptiste, who was the medium from Phoenix Nights, Amy Cooper, Vic Slayton. We're going to have a really great time. It's at the Forum in Tunbridge Wells. You can join us for an interactive Facebook live stream. Get your tickets $4.99 at darkhorsedigital.co.uk, or there's a limited number of tickets to be in the audience, physically in the audience at the forum. And once again, go to darkhorsedigital.co.uk for those two. If you click on that link, that will take you to the tickets, and you'll see two buttons, and one's for the tickets for to be there, or one's for online. And producer Paul will be manning the screens so that the people that are watching the show via the Facebook Live, you'll be able to chat to us. You'll be able to get involved in the comments. Producer Paul will tell me what you're saying. We can have a bit of back and forth. You can have a bit of a heckle. How about that? Old school. Hey? So it's going to be a great night. It's going to be a brilliant night. So that's Thursday, the 17th of June. And that's Rich Wilson presents Dark Horse live comedy Under the Stars. Come and join us. Also, big shout out to our wonderful sponsors, those beautiful boys at Save Our Souls Clothing, Mark and Stacey. They've been sponsoring us now, and they're just beautiful boys. I love having them on board. They're good lads. And if you go to sosclothing.co.uk/membrane and use the 15% discount code membrane, you'll get money off of their range, plus you'll get money off of our membrane tees and hoodies. You must go and do that. The merch is excellent that they put together. I mean, and if people go, it's gold. No, I'm telling you now, go and get yourself a t-shirt. You will look amazing. They're really great. They're good quality t-shirts as well. They're not just any old shit. These boys really know their stuff. They're ethically sourced. Even the ink is vegan friendly. So, what's not to love? Get yourself involved. Get yourself on their website, Save Our Soul, sosclothing.co.uk/membrane. Use the promo code membrane and you'll get 15% off. There you go. Woo! So, this week, it's Insane in the Fembrain. It's another great chat with the wonderful comedian and author Rosie Wilby. Rosie Wilby, I've known Rosie a good few years now. We've gigged together a few times. And she's got her own podcast, The Breakup Monologues, where people come on and talk about when they've been in breakups, relationship breakups. And I was a guest on that a little while ago, a couple of years ago. And, it's a nice conversation to have, to sort of assess, what happened, why it happened, and hopefully you avoid those mistakes going forward. And she's got a book out now based on that very podcast, and so we were like, well, you have to come on and you have to come and talk to us about your book and about relationships and things like that. And it was a really interesting chat, as these always are. That's the thing, when relationships break down, it's sad, and it's, especially if you love each other but you just can't make it work for whatever reason, or you loved each other initially and then it just, I don't know, it just falls apart, and you're trying to get back together and it doesn't just, so it's nice to hear other people talking about their experiences with relationships breaking down, because then you realise that, as we said in this episode, it makes you realise that you're not on your own, and you're not, that other people do go through these things, sadly. And so it was a really good chat. And so without further ado, coming up in a bit is Rosie Wilby.
A podcast from producer Paul.co.uk.
Welcome, Rosie. It's nice to have you here.
Oh, it's lovely to be here, Rich, and speak to you.
And you,
mate. These strange times in the world.
Yeah. It's funny. Everybody, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were saying that they felt anxious, and they felt, they're anxious about going back out, and they were worried, I just said to them, yeah, everybody feels the same. We're all just pretending that we're all right. I think most of us are pretty anxious about it.
It's a strange old time, but I think what's weird for me is I feel this sort of like survivor's guilt, if you like, because I've actually had probably the best time of my life the past year or so, and I'm aware that so many of my friends have had such a dreadful time, so I say that with a certain amount of guilt about it, because I kind of realised during the first lockdown, not the sequels, those were a bit shit, but that first lockdown, I think it was really what I needed, that pause for thought, that kind of time to really consider where I was going. I mean, I had just started writing my new book anyway, so it was kind of good timing because I needed headspace to write that, and suddenly I had all this time open up to sit down and do that in a slightly different routine than I would normally. But also I think for me, comedy had become a bit of this slightly wearying cycle of turn up to gig, be funny, get paid, go home. And for me, I had stopped developing creatively, and possibly also as a human being, because you get sort of stuck in a certain way of doing things. So for me, it was a real kickstart into just coming up with other ideas and obviously writing the book, but also thinking about pitches and treatments and having the time and headspace to write really good pitches for Radio 4 and have meetings with comedy commissioners, which is weird. Like in the old days, I never had those kind of meetings, but now I'm able to sort of start making things happen. I mean, it may all come to nothing, but I think it's coincided with me being in a better place in my life. I mean, ironically, I've written this book about breakups, and it's all really about how I've learned from my terrible breakups in the past and getting dumped by email many years ago, when I thought that was a terrible thing before we had ghosting and all of these new ways of breaking up with people. Obviously, I joked at the time. I felt better after I'd corrected her spelling. But I got dumped by email, and I've written about that breakup and a lot of other breakups that happened that were very painful. And part of my quest, if you like, in investigating breakups has been to figure out how to stay in my relationship that I'm in now, which is the most solid and steady and stable relationship that I've ever been in. And subsequently, after I finished the book, we've got engaged, and
congratulations!
Our wedding next year.
Oh wow!
You. I know, and it's just this very peculiar thing that my life has. And again, I feel bad saying this. My life has sort of suddenly come together in a way it never could before, and I'm aware, everyone around me is having an awful time. But I do get it, and I do hear what it's like for other people, because honestly, I have been there, and I've really been through terrible times in the past. Awful times. When in my early years in comedy, I was in a relationship with somebody who was in the closet and wasn't out to her family, and the sort of shame attached to that, and the feelings that you have about yourself when your partner is sort of ashamed of you, and your parents-in-law don't want to meet you, is really, really tough. And that was quite draining of my energies and really challenging, and I think did sort of colour how I was feeling about myself those early years when I was going around on the circuit gigging and touring. I mean, my partner did once try to tell me that her parents were, maybe not too homophobic, because they had quite enjoyed the film Brokeback Mountain. I thought, that's not necessarily giving the most positive sense of how gay relationships can turn out. But yeah, I think it's really a kind of weirdly interesting time for me, where I do feel a bit more positive about the world. And obviously the pandemic, it was terrible. Like if you turned on the news and, people are dying, I mean, awful. But in another way, this kind of this feeling of being on holiday. You know, it was beautiful weather that first lockdown, and and not having to trek to some of the frankly hideous and awful gigs. You know, they're at the arse end of nowhere in some village hall where someone drove into the wall and it's actually just fallen down. You know, and where nobody understands comedy and they don't know what you're on about. So in some ways it was sort of sweet relief because I have done a lot of weird gigs over the years. And I think it was this sort of relief to be out in nature. And I love kind of being outdoors and walking our beautiful dog when she doesn't just run off and disappear. Because she's called Dolly. She's 3 years old now. And she is a cross between a cocker and a beagle. So both quite crazy breeds. Yeah. Beagles are not very obedient, terrible at recall. Cockers have high energy. So it just means that when she does run off and run away from us, she does it really, really fast.
Yeah, she doesn't give a shit either.
She really does not. It's so depressing because in the house, when she's sitting on the sofa with us, she's so cuddly. She's the most affectionate dog. Oh, she's just amazing. But yeah, when we're out and she's chasing a scent of a deer or a rabbit or a fox, there's just we can't connect with her. Fortunately, we've got this little tracker where we clip to her collar and we can see where she is. That doesn't necessarily mean we can get there. She goes into private gardens.
No,
God
just buggers
off. Yeah, she really does. So it's been quite interesting. And one time I was chasing her and scrambling through brambles and crawling along like I was in some kind of, assault course or whatever. And I finally found the tracker on the ground in the dirt and it had come off of the dog's collar. So I found the tracker, but not the dog.
Oh my God.
And then some other lady came along and walked past and I was looking very dishevelled. And she had our dog on a lead and with her two dogs. And she was like, "Oh, is this your dog?" I was like, yes, it is. Thank you. And it joined someone else for a walk.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, pet owning has been, I guess that's been quite a dominant factor in my life the past 2 or 3 years. We've got 2 cats as well. Right. And they all sort of get on and it's kind of fun times. So I guess for us, they're our babies, really. They are our children.
Yeah. Do you call yourselves mum and dad?
Well, mum and mum, I suppose.
Mum and mum, sorry, yeah.
It's all right. I mean, yeah, my girlfriend can be dad. She can.
Well, that was it. I didn't know, because I know I've got a couple that I know, and one of them's mum and one of them's dad, but they're both women.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, if we were really going to go along the sort of gender stereotype kind of roles, she is the one who is quite firm with the dog. Right. So I would probably, if she's being naughty and I'm like, I'm not very good at telling her off because she's so cute. So I'll be like, "Oh, don't do that. Don't be so naughty," I'm really ineffective. And I'll be like, "Well, just you wait till your other mum gets home because I'll tell her what you've done."
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell her you've eaten her shoe.
I used to have a black Pomeranian called Elvis. And Elvis, he was lovely, but he was such an arrogant prick. He never did, because he knew he was good looking. And he knew, I don't know what happened to him with his previous owners. I know he didn't like kids because the kids had picked on him, which is why we ended up with him. But he just used to look at me like he just shat me out. I was like, "Elvis, pack it in." And he just like, whatever. And he just fuck off out. He just didn't care. But, he was a good looking dog. So, yeah, the arrogance of beauty.
Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it? I actually say in my book, if our dog Dolly, if we'd chosen her on an app on like a Tinder for pets, you would totally, based on her photo, because she looks absolutely beautiful, and she's got, got that kind of classic Snoopy look with the beautifully soft ears that you just want to squish. And she smells of biscuits, and she's just adorable. But yeah, she doesn't really care about us, even though we give her treats and cuddles, and she has soft beds to sleep on. Yeah.
It's funny. It's almost like they're animals, isn't it? they don't really get it. It's funny with we couldn't have pets before because my partner was horrifically allergic to them, and like when we first got together, we used to look after my dogs from my previous relationship, even though my ex-partner knew that she was allergic. She did that, and bless her, after a couple of days, she's like, I need to go to the hospital. I need to go and get a nebulizer. She'd put herself out that much. She knew I loved the dogs, and they were like, are you sure? I was like, no, they'll be fine. Let's have them. And then 2 days in, it's like, I've got to go to the hospital. So we stopped doing that because I'm like, I don't want to kill you. As much as I appreciate what you're doing, and it's beautiful.
It was a nice gesture.
It was a nice gesture, and bless her, it got to a point like, no, we're in hospital again. So, yeah, It's a shame. It is a shame, but it's it's funny you talking about the gigs. The anxieties are coming back now, and it's more to do with the money. Like, it's all right, you've got the gigs, but it takes a while to get paid, and that's that's the cycle I'm in at the minute. And you're like, I look really busy, but I haven't got any money, and that used to stress me out. I didn't miss that in the lockdowns.
Yeah. Oh, I think that is really hard, and I think the relationship with money is really complicated if you're a self-employed creative freelancer. Things haven't really been fair for us at all. No. Those grants, like, oh, come on. It doesn't, even the months that they covered, I'm like, but there was a month missing, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And then, it
doesn't all add up. It doesn't make sense. I've definitely struggled mental health wise in the past, in terms of, I think possibly the worst thing is when like a venue goes into liquidation.
Oh God.
And it was quite a nicely paid gig. I remember that happened once a few years ago there was an LGBT arts festival at the Brew House in Taunton.
Yeah.
And it was really odd. Me and the other performers were like, there's not really anybody here. It's all a bit weird. And we'd all turned up and done our shows to very tiny audiences, and a very skeleton staff was sort of keeping things just about running. And then, of course, the paperwork of doom, the big envelope of some stupid forms you've got to fill in to try and claim your fee, which you'll never get. All this stuff arrives to the door, and you're like, oh no. Yeah.
And it's such,
that's
and you
awful.
What's worse is that you just know it's horribly, it's inevitable. You just get that feeling. You're like, I'm not getting paid for this. I know this is.
Yeah, you just know, don't you? I did back years ago when I was a musician in the sort of early noughties. I did a gig at Pride in Glasgow, Scottish Pride or Scot Pride or whatever it was, and it was all very disappointing anyway, because me and my partner at the time had gone all the way up to Glasgow to stay in the Travel Lodge.
Oh, wow.
And then when we got on stage, it had been quite a nice day, but it suddenly absolutely pissed down. So there were just a few lesbians in fleeces and hiking boots under their umbrellas listening to our songs. And then we started to get the fear that we weren't getting paid, because all the Scottish acts who were local were chasing around after the person with the money.
Oh, God.
And so we joined this trail of people chasing the person with the money with some urgency.
Yeah.
And we could tell something was wrong. And so by the time we got to the front of the queue, they were like, oh, we've run out of cash. And I got handed a check.
Oh, no.
I thought, it's going to bounce.
Yeah, boy.
And then you get charged for it bouncing.
Yeah. I know. It's
adds insult to injury. It's like, oh, no.
But it's that, like you say, it's that relationship with money that causes so much stress. And especially in our industry, in order to progress, you have to put money into it. So you're paying to go to Edinburgh and things like that, and so then you're in debt. You're either in debt to a partner that said they'd pay for it, or you're in debt to the people. You're in debt to someone, and all you're trying to do is progress and get to a point where you don't have to worry about money. I mean, it's not even having millions of pounds. It's just getting to a point where money isn't a worry. And this is the problem, is it? Everyone feels the same way with money.
Oh, I know. And unfortunately, we live in this sort of celebrity-obsessed culture where we pay some people, a few artists, ridiculous amounts, and the majority of creative artists who also have something valid and fascinating to say, not very much. So I find it really tricky. I've kind of wondered if there are different models we can look at, like in the books world, which is I've started to be involved with now. I've kind of written 2 books. They pay you in advance based on how many copies some kind of middle class white straight dude thinks you're going to sell. With all the unconscious bias that is loaded into that. So of course you get a system where your white middle class straight dudes are going to get paid more because the people making the decisions go, oh, I think everyone will like this book. I'm not sure I understand, this book that's written by a disabled lesbian. It's really, really tricky, isn't it? And I've actually written in my book, there's a chapter set in Edinburgh where my girlfriend and I are not really getting on, and we're sat on the top of Colton Hill, where there's that weird monument to Scotland. It looks a bit like sort of Greek pillared kind of monument. And we're just having a cup of tea and really arguing, because she's just like, why are you doing this? Why don't you come home? And I'm like, no, but you need to support me. I know this seems ludicrous that I am here, an experienced seasoned performer with a show that's had, has already toured and had 4 and 5 star reviews and sellout shows, and now I'm performing. I can see how somebody thinks it's absolutely doesn't make any sense, doesn't add up. Now I'm performing it in a tiny attic with a falling down backdrop and a room full of litter and a microphone that doesn't work, and I had to even switch my own lights on and off and make that kind of part of the show. Let's make this fun. But honestly, oh my god, I don't know how you sort of reconcile that with yourself when I just think Edinburgh, I think it's become a bit problematic. So in my book I actually break up with Edinburgh.
Oh really?
But I decided to class it as an abusive relationship.
Fuck yeah.
It's taking all my money and making me feel bad about myself,
and it's making you feel like you need it. Like, you need to be here. You have to be here. Well, I want you to be here. Come on.
So my God. I haven't been for a few years. But we'll see. It's kind of one of those things where I'm sure I could get lured back. But I think it can be the loneliest place to be as a performer.
God, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I've been stood in many doorways pissing down with rain. Just, what am I doing? You're in a city, all your mates are there, but you have a moment. I remember Jade being at the Pleasance, and she was in one of the big rooms, and she sold £47,000 worth of tickets.
Wow.
And she came home with minus £3,000. And you're like, how? How is that? And then it's like, that's what you have to do. You go, in any other industry, anyone would go, are you fucking mental? But it's all, you feel like you have to do it, don't you?
I mean, that is, it's staggering, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But I think it can make you feel like what you have to say doesn't have value because you're not getting paid to do it. And in fact, as it turns out, for many of us, particularly if we go to Edinburgh, we're paying out thousands of pounds to be able to do it and to be able to say what we have to say. But I think because for many of us, our identity is so wrapped up in the shows. I mean, this Breakup Monologues book stems from obviously my podcast, The Breakup Monologues, but that was preceded by this whole trilogy of shows about love and relationships and the sort of psychology of how we are attracted to people, fall in and out of love, and so on. So there's a whole body of work that feels so connected to the fabric of who I am and what I am. And it's got this political undercurrent of watching the world become more tolerant to me as a gay woman, and now finally being able to get married. So it feels like there's so much that's really important in that work, even though obviously, lots of people don't know my work and don't care about it, but there are people who really, really do. And I sort of feel like, there are people who messaged me after they'd read my first book and said, it helped me to be friends with my ex or communicate with my ex, or it helped me to get over a breakup, or it helped me to think about monogamy, and I changed my approach, and I feel really happy about it. Or really, really healthy things that were altering people's mindset about how they felt in relationships and how they'd been feeling lonely and alone and isolated and not normal. And I think you can't almost put a price on stuff like that. So I felt a bit, because with that first book, my publisher actually went out of business.
Oh shit!
Which was awful. I mean, they've got bought out by somebody else, so I do get sent my royalties now every so often.
Oh right, that's all right then.
Oh my God, it was difficult times because I wasn't sure if the book was still going to come out or what was going to happen. But when you put so much into it, and you really care about what you've got to say, and you know that your audience, however big or small that is, will care about that too. Yeah. It's really stressful if you think that isn't going to get out into the world at all.
After all the work you've put into it.
Oh my God. Yeah, because writing a book, God, it's quite an endeavour. It's like sort of 10 Edinburgh shows in a way.
Well, and that's it, isn't it? Because it's not the first draft. It's like I'm working on something with somebody, and we're not even at the dialogue bit yet. It's literally we are setting out the universe that these characters live in, and setting out. You're talking about who the characters are, how they came to be where they are, and that's taken weeks. Every week we meet up via Zoom, and you're like, right, and this isn't even And then because they've done it before, they've done work before, so they've been explaining to me how it works, and they were saying, look, this is just where we're at now. This is going to be different when we get further down the line. And I'm like, fucking hell! I just thought you just wrote the thing, but you have to invent this whole universe where these characters exist, and that's the same with books. It's you get the idea for it, but you have to keep rewriting it, and
I know. And then it takes ages for your friends to read it as well. Like my friend said, I said to her, what did you think? And she was like, I really like the bit where, and then she detailed this bit. I was like, that's on the first page.
They tell you two bits and you go, that's on the front and that's on the back. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes it takes a while to even get the feedback that you so sorely crave as a terribly insecure performer and creative.
Well, this is it. It's that we live in that weird middle ground where we have the kind of the confidence to do it, but at the same time the insecurities eat away at us when we do it. It's a weird place to be. So no wonder we're all depressed or our emotions are up and down.
Yeah. Well, I've been interested in how in the first lockdown I have embraced the fact that I'm largely an introvert, and I suppose you kind of assume if you're doing something like comedy, you must be extroverted. But I think tons of comedians are quite introverted or are a complex mix. There was a study done where we were found to be quite different to actors who are typically extroverted, whereas comedians are much more of a mix. And I think lockdown helped me to embrace that introvert tendency. And I think in a weird way, doing comedy is my way of carving out a space to speak and to put some ideas and thoughts out there into the world, because you've got a microphone, you've got a stage, and normally, not at every gig, but normally that gives you the space to do what you want to do. Like, of course, sometimes there are gigs where there are people who are hell-bent on you not being able to communicate your ideas and your jokes and your humour. But largely speaking, that platform allows you to say something and create something. So I think it's quite a good thing for an introvert to do. And, I mean, it doesn't mean you don't like other people. Like, there are lots of other comedians I love seeing. But sometimes if I saw everybody at a massive party all together, I might be like, I'm just going to go home. But I think I've been able to embrace my introvert tendency and understand it better. Yeah. So I think that's been, quite useful.
Well, I'm the same. I've said this loads of times on here. I'm quite shy. And so what I end up doing is going into social situations and I'll have a couple of drinks. So I'm a social drinker. I don't really drink at home, but I'll end up getting bollocksed because I'm so on edge and nervous that I'm in this new situation. And it got quite bad actually. In the last relationship, I remember going, I don't think I can face it. I can't. The nerves was too much. That I was going to look like an absolute dickhead. That I'd have to really build up the courage to go. I think because maybe like we weren't really firing on all cylinders, so that was kind of chipping away at my confidence a bit, and hers as well. We were both at that weird. We didn't want it to end, but we couldn't see a way of fixing it. So I think that affected us on different levels. But I am quite shy, and I know when I've done drugs with people, and these drugs usually people get all up and hey, I go the other way. I go really quiet. So people like doing things with me because they get all chatty and I just sit and listen. I do a bit of DJing and then they're just chatting away about whatever.
That's what we should give audiences. The listening drug.
That's it. Just to they sit there and go, this is really interesting. I'm enjoying this.
This is great.
Yeah. I think you're right. There's something in that.
Gosh, drugs. God, it's been a while, but
well,
I mean, I used to love a bit of ecstasy in my former life. That would make a night out feel much more palatable.
Well, this is it. I was talking about this the other night. I was like, I'm 49 now, and I'm like, someone said to me, you're getting into heart attack territory, and so I'm like, yeah, you're right. We don't want to be doing that. So, but it's the fact that you end up doing those things late at night, I think that used to fuck you up. Because you're like, if you're going to do drugs, do them during the day. Start at lunchtime. And then you're in bed at a reasonable hour, But I know I do them now.
I mean, depends what drugs you've taken. But
this is it.
I mean, they started getting rubbish, didn't they? At the end of the 90s, people would just sell you an aspirin outside a club and you'd be like, oh, well, at least my headache's gone.
I feel so alive. Yeah. But now people, I remember, I'm not on them now. Once I had antidepressants once. That would have been in the early 2000s. And then I was working at a festival, and somebody put liquid ecstasy in my drink.
Oh wow!
And so the two things kind of cancelled each other out, and I just felt nothing. I was like talking about mortgages, and it's like.
Just normal, just very pragmatic.
I said, that's what I need to do. I need a bit of that, and a bit of that, and that'll level me out. But I don't know. Everybody, I think there's far too many people now get put onto antidepressants too quickly. you know, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. There's something I talk about in the book is the idea of whether we could harness the side effects of certain antidepressants, particularly the SSRI antidepressants. Now, what's that? Serotonin. Oh, God, I can't remember what SSRI stands for, but it's to do with serotonin reuptake inhibitors, I think.
Okay.
And so some of the side effects of those are that they can make you less empathetic with somebody or less attached to somebody. So say, for example, if you were in a sort of abusive relationship and you wanted to somehow fall, in inverted commas, out of love with that person, you know, there are certain drugs, certain chemicals that we already take that we take for something else that might be harnessed to have an influence in our romantic lives, maybe to detach ourselves from an unhealthy relationship. Equally, ecstasy was used in the 80s in couples therapy.
Was it really?
To help couples communicate. Yeah, before it became outlawed as this kind of naughty rave drug.
Yeah.
And I think, God, I want to go to that couples counselling session.
My God, that would be incredible. Producer Paul's just put the link up on the screen. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Yeah, you're right.
That's it. Yeah, selective. I couldn't remember the first word. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be, there's something that yes, I've done, having done drugs out in the world, in, you know, at raves and wherever else. But the best times have been at home, when you're with your partner doing it. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I know, absolutely. Although I remember me and my partner at the time, we used to do it sometimes when we worked out it was really not the right time, like when you were just about to watch a movie at the cinema.
And
you're
God,
too excited.
That's the last thing you want to do.
I know. We were like, we better go. We're going to disrupt everybody. Or, you know, when you've just ordered a massive meal and you suddenly don't have any appetite, you just want to go and dance or snog or hug people or chat. We used to sometimes end up taking a doggy bag out. We'd be like, we suddenly don't feel hungry.
That's it, yeah.
Sort of drugs have come up.
I know people that when they're doing them, they drink as well, and I could never do both.
No.
I do one or the other. And
well, it is a drug as well, isn't it? And I think that's one of the more harmful ones. But of course, in this world, in this messed up world, we make things that don't necessarily need to be illegal.
Yeah. Well, they can't. Well, it's that old conversation, isn't it, that they haven't worked out how to make money from it. The government haven't worked out how to tax it. And once they do that, then suddenly they get behind it. You know, like weed will become legal very soon. As soon as they work out how to make money from it.
It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Back to money again.
It's all money. So the first lockdown, I felt strangely zen because the stress of having, like you said, the stress of not having to, I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have any money, but I wasn't spending any money on travel. So any money that was coming in was just going on the bills and just things, you know. It was quite nice to be taken out of society for a bit and.
Yeah, it sort of got back to the simple priorities, the simple basics. Me and my partner were like cooking meals together, like things we don't normally have time to cook, like, you know, cooking a really nice lasagna from scratch, you know, with all the wine and fresh herbs and spices and everything, you know, or a spag bol or whatever, but doing it properly without, you know, just packets and whatever.
Well, you had time to do it properly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was really nice. And I think it gave us a chance to bond and connect, because normally she's out during the day and I would have been out a lot during the evenings. Yeah. So sometimes you can be a bit ships that pass in the night when you've got different working schedules. But then I think by the time the sort of further lockdowns came in, we were a bit like ready to have that space again, because I think when you're expecting it and then it's taken away from you, you're like, oh God, I was really looking forward to you going out. God, and you're here.
Well, that was
And our hair was getting so long and so big.
I'm still growing mine. I've kept it up. I've decided to grow it.
Good work.
Yeah, but it's funny because I got a job working for my mate's clothing company, and that helped. So I was out of the house every day, and because we were in our little bubble, so I got to do that and keep out of the way. So that kind of took the pressure off a little bit in the last lockdown, because we would have killed each other. You know? And I remember she did a set when we first went back out, and it was all about how she would get away with killing me. You're going, all right, cool, yeah, we need to have a chat.
Well, I mean, me and my partner have just got life insurance, and you
really?
do think,
yeah. Just see if one of you's not feeling well, you go, yeah, all right, I'll do it. I'll go. I'll be the one. It's funny, when I did some gigs abroad, and we got insured. We were insured for like £2 million.
Oh, wow.
And I remember my partner then was going, so where are you going again? Suddenly all these vans are coming at me when I'm away. But yeah, it's all part of being in a relationship, isn't it? Trying to work out. I think that was the problem with these lockdowns, is that we're not supposed to be with each other 24/7. You know?
No, it's really completely unnatural. It's really, really strange. So I find it odd when people do work together and live together and, socialise together and do everything together. I mean, it was a nice kind of change to spend all that time with my partner, but I do think, you need some time apart.
Yeah.
But it's been a really interesting time, I think. And like I say, I have really been reflecting a lot on, kind of my sort of identity as a gay woman and how I've sort of seen kind of queer politics evolve, and now that I can get married. But I've also thought about my own sexuality now that I'm in the security of a stable relationship, and I am in a relationship with a woman. It's been more possible for me to look at the fact that in pure sexuality terms, I'm probably bisexual.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of something I've never. I mean, when I came out, bisexuality hadn't even been invented yet, really.
No,
it's just lesbian and gay society at university. But I've had boyfriends, back long time ago. And I'm not, I know some of my gold star lesbian friends, as they call themselves, who've never slept with a man, who are like, oh, penis, oh, and just sort of recoil in horror at thought of a man. But I've never really been like that. And in the book, I talk about, I went and did this really weird experiment. I participated in a sex lab where you go in and look at erotic imagery, and they're sort of measuring your genital arousal and your pupil dilation, and you're also rating the different clips that you've seen. I mean, it's weird. You look at a woman masturbating on the floor, and then they say, how likely would you be to date this person? Which is like, well, I've never met her. I don't know.
I'm not going to date her just based on that.
So weird. I mean, frankly, in that first clip where the woman was masturbating, lying on the floor, I was concerned because there was a guitar leaning very precariously against a window. And I was concerned, guitars are not disposable. They're quite fragile instruments. So I found myself distracted, frankly. But when it came to some of the clips of men, I was like quite intrigued, because I haven't really looked at a naked man for quite a while. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
There we are. And so I just think sexuality is, more complicated than maybe the sort of social and cultural and political labels that we attach to ourselves that help us to sort of neatly say how we fit into the world in terms of the relationships we're more likely to commit to long term, and how we sort of put ourselves into the world in that way.
Yeah.
But it's been quite interesting for me to perhaps have that freedom now that I know that I'm not going to go off and shag a man, but to say that actually it was not terrible when I did. It was fine. It was quite fun. But I suppose I've always had a bit of a concern that if you say that, then I've often been approached by men after gigs who were a bit like, particularly when I was single and I was talking openly about being single, and they're like, well, you're not really a lesbian, are you? Not.
Oh, right.
And somehow they didn't.
You've had a decent cock, babe. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've always been careful not to fuel those thoughts of, well, she just needs a cock. Whereas now I'm engaged to be married to a woman. I'm happy to kind of, admit that cocks are fine by me. They're fine.
Well, I think that's how you know who you are when you're engaging in the act of onanism. When you're on your own and your thoughts, you're thinking about the thing that gets you to where you want to be. I think that's how you. That's what I think anyway. That, what do you think about when you masturbate? Should give you an indication of where you're at sexually, maybe.
Yeah. I think that can sometimes be surprising. I mean, I joked in my first book. There's a scene about me going to the lesbian sauna, where I was hoping for it to be this hedonistic orgy like my gay men friends have. But we all sort of ended up just folding towels and chatting and tidying up.
I'm not being sexist, right? But I've worked in a gay sauna, in a male sauna, and it's a very different vibe. And if you leave men alone long enough, regardless of their sexuality, they will just fight and fuck each other.
Exactly.
They just do. And it's...
It's... I mean, yes, we don't want to be completely gender essentialist, but I totally agree that women don't have that same... I don't know. We're not able to separate out sex and love and the sort of emotional side of it the same. So it was a very different experience going to this kind of lesbian sauna, and it was all sort of really polite and stuff as well. So after you. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I mean, it got to the point where I did actually end up having a little snog with a woman in the shower, but the shower was on a timer. So obviously the gay men don't mind. Maybe they don't need that long under the shower.
Well, no. I remember once there was these two guys and they were really at it, but in the sauna they had this kitchen bit and people could go and make a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and then you had the sauna and the steam room, and then upstairs in the attic there was like cubicles, you could do stuff, glory holes, and there was porn on the TV. So the kitchen bit was meant to be so you come out of all that and then you have a bit of a chill out and you a cup of tea and whatever you want to do, maybe have a cold drink, whatever. And these two fellas were just in there and they were just pounding each other again, like the cups are flying over, the kettle's going, and I had to go up and tell them, like, lads, hey, come on, not in here. You take that upstairs or take it in there. They were just. I've never seen
not in the tea room.
I was like, yeah, exactly. You're ruining the doilies. I've never seen two people have sex in such an aggressive fashion. It was brutal, and I'm like, hey, come on, guys. And then it was like I had to tap them on the nose, like, hey, just pack it in, because that's what and it just seems to be. I don't know.
Wow, you've had some interesting jobs, Rich.
I have. But it made me. Working in the sauna did make me realise that I wasn't gay. I thought I was. I thought I might be, but I had one experience, and then that was it. It was a lovely experience, but it was like, I'm more into women than men, But maybe that's just the way. Maybe it's just because I've been brought up that way. Maybe because I quite like the mates that I've got. There's some of them when we say hello, we kiss each other hello and kiss each other goodbye. It's not snogging, but it's like it's a kiss and it's a hug, and and it's nice, and I quite like that. I think more people should be like that.
So is it a kiss on the lips?
Yeah. Yeah, it was myself and Marcus Birdman, who I think
Nice.
you know. Yeah, and it's like,
Yeah.
hello mate, like, and we kiss each other, and yeah, we wouldn't have sex, but there's a there's a chemistry there. We enjoy each other's company. We don't lie on the beach twiddling each other's hair, but you know, and we do. You know, if we haven't seen each other for a while, we do message each other. Go, I miss you too. It's quite nice to have that, you know. But we wouldn't. I've thought about it. Would I have sex with him? And I'm like, no. Probably because I know what he's been up to.
You know where he's been.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's the same with you. Is that, you know, are you quite affectionate with your friends? And
probably not a lot of kissing on the lips, because I think that would be too confusing, because of being a gay woman who has gay female friends predominantly, like my close set of friends are all gay, some are ex-partners, and so it would feel a bit weird and a bit kind of crossing boundaries to actually kiss each other on the lips. Like, we are close and care about each other and look out for one another, but and also I think partly because in the LGBT community there's a lot of kind of mental health issues, and there are much more common instances of depression and anxiety and so on. I've had a lot of friends who I can't physically see that often, you know, ex-partners who are agoraphobic or bipolar.
Oh, really?
And then they sort of disappear off the scene for a while. Yeah. And then, you know, they're back again. I mean, I had a relationship for 2 years with a woman who has sort of partial agoraphobia, and I mean, it was really challenging because she hadn't had it diagnosed at the time, and we were musicians and we were touring together, and so there'd be a load of gigs where she didn't make it, she didn't turn up.
Oh my gosh.
And it's very complicated going out with somebody and working with somebody who had this kind of agoraphobia, but it manifested in a really weird way, because she felt okay, she felt safe if she was in her car. So sometimes we would do these gigs where literally she had parked her car like right up against the door of the venue.
Oh my God.
She would practically walk out of the venue straight into her car. I mean, of course she would always get parking fines.
Yeah. But she'd rather that than...
Yeah. So,
wow.
It's a lot of kind of close friends have been people who've really suffered and struggled a lot. You know, there are probably friends of mine who see me as, you know, relatively robust and normal and resilient, and I think, oh my God, you know, if only you knew how I've been feeling at Edinburgh Fringe those times, or when I was in that, you know, relationship that was really difficult for me and really, really challenging. But I think, you know, when I started comedy, I think I sort of had almost a bit of a rebirth after I'd had this music career that had kind of fizzled out when my band all broke up. And I think perhaps foolishly I felt a bit invincible for a while, like I was doing all the comedy competitions and getting through, and that was so addictive and compelling and exciting and amazing. And so I met my partner who, you know, if I'd have thought rationally for a second, I'd have known that I didn't want to be with somebody who was in the closet. I actually had an active online dating profile at the time saying, I didn't say no closet cases, but it said something to that effect, because I knew that was not something I would handle very well. I knew myself enough. But of course, then I met this person at a gig. It was quite a weird little gig in Borough at a pub called the Ship of Fools.
Oh, nice.
And it was such a random little, you know, one of those very random upstairs rooms. Yeah. And there was hardly anyone there, and I remember this woman like coming up to me in the interval and saying, I thought you were really great. And I said, I've not been on yet.
That's what you want.
You know, we got chatting, and when I was actually on, she did like it as well. But I think the high of starting comedy and that feeling exciting and meeting new friends in comedy whipped me up into this kind of, oh, well, it doesn't matter that she's not out because I'm so amazing that she's bound to overcome all of these issues and, she'll be able to come out because of going out with me,
of course,
you have this total sort of egotistical kind of sense of how, you can help your partner to, kind of overcome something that really they need to overcome for themselves.
Yeah, I understand that.
I guess, I've seen people play out with people who are going out with addicts as well. And, there's something very compelling about the narrative of you helping them sort it out when maybe you can't.
Yeah, I get that. I understand. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, because it's all very well saying, oh, I'll help you. But if the thing that's stopping them is so deeply locked in, like you say, there's nothing you can do. You just that's... Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That because was it easy for you to come out then? Like when it happened, you just went.
Yeah,
ta-da. I don't know. I've gone ta-da. That's not how you do it.
Ta-da.
But, yeah, ta-da.
You come out. You literally come out of a little closet. Reveal a sort of reveal yourself in a little pink puff of smoke.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I've joked on stage about coming out over the years because I've talked about how my mum, bless her, who's not around anymore, really embraced it and got overexcited and started telling me all about her and her friend Joan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hello. They'd been. Hello. And how they used to holiday together before she met Dad.
Wow.
Yeah, how she might have been a lesbian in a different era. And then she started getting lesbian love poetry out of the library and finding all of this love poetry and reciting it at the tea table. And my dad was like, oh my God, what's she doing? So it was, my mum was a bit over enthusiastic.
Yeah. But
I was lucky, really.
Yeah, almost living vicariously through you to a certain extent. So I couldn't come out, but yeah. Well, that was like, I've said this on another episode. My granddad, we think, was gay, and my dad's dad, and he never, he didn't come out, and it was only when he died, and then these 4 guys turned up that were friends of my granddad, that were very flamboyant, and I remember my dad telling me, he went, we just didn't know that my dad had another life going on,
Wow.
Yeah. And it makes total sense. You go, of course, yeah. He was always very well turned out. He had wonderful skin. He's looked after himself. I'm not saying that's what all gay people have, but
no. He was always off down the sauna.
Always down the sauna. He always smelled immaculate. He just always looked great. And it's a shame, isn't it, that. Way back then they couldn't just be themselves. They felt like they had to, didn't it? It was illegal to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yourself,
God. And I mean, still around the world, so many countries where it's completely illegal. So, it's not like everything is all sorted. No. And I think even for people, of our sort of age, Rich, if you've been, if you felt like an outsider and you've been marginalised in some way, even when we achieve the kind of equalities that we now have, it doesn't sort of undo some of the legacy of that hurt of the relationships you've had that weren't recognised or could never have, been recognised in any way, or you couldn't be public about, or, the fact that, for a woman my age, I don't have children. And the main reason for that is because I'm a lesbian and because lesbians didn't have children. When I came out in the 90s, that was just the narrative. When I came into the London queer scene, it was like, oh yeah, gay people don't have kids, but let's just party, yay. And, I was like, okay, if no one else is having kids, fine. And now there's this complex set of emotions going on, to be honest, where I'm so happy that younger gay women do have access to that. I mean, it's still really complicated. You can't do it just the easy and cheap way.
No, right. It's just
well, I mean, I suppose you could just get a man in.
yeah, just get a man. Just get a man in.
The man would be like, well, hey.
There you go, just come in, just do what he needs to do, and off he goes. Yeah,
but I mean, it's the kind of hypothetical conversation I've had with girlfriends in the past, like which of our male friends would we get to father our children? But it was always just sort of a bit of a kind of jokey hypothetical thing, because it just wasn't really accepted. And the law hasn't really, it's only relatively recently that say if you had a child by IVF, that the non-biological parent would be recognised in any way. That's really a fairly recent development. So yeah, it was definitely something, and it's something I've been wrestling with, I think, as I've been thinking more, as I've been writing this book about relationships and love. And there was a chapter that I wrote about family and about the animals and about when my partner and I were at her brother's wedding and sort of being part of her extended family, and how it feels to have not really had that opportunity to have children. And I think I'm okay with it now. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have wanted children, and it turns out we have a nice life with our pets who don't need homeschooling. Thank God.
Your fur babies.
I mean, they have their challenges, but I mean, our little our youngest cat Tiggy, who's just coming up to 1, he's a bit disabled, bless him. He's got wobbly cat syndrome. So we do have a few incidents with him at times.
Okay.
When he can't make it to the toilet.
Oh, bless him.
His legs aren't working.
No. Oh, bless. Rosie, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always
a good note to end on.
Isn't it?
Cat pooing itself on the rug.
It's a metaphor, I think. No, it's not. And the book's out now.
My book, The Breakup Monologues, is out now, yes.
Excellent. And where is that? Is that available everywhere?
Yeah, all the bookshop places, all the kind of Amazon and Waterstones, and indie bookshops as well. If you want to support your local indie bookshop, they should be able to order it. There's also an audiobook narrated by me.
Lovely.
So, yeah, I sat in the studio chatting away.
How was that?
Do listen to that.
How was that to do? Is it long?
It's absolutely horrific. It feels so long. I mean, I was chatting to Jen Brister about recording hers, and she didn't realise how arduous it was. So they booked her in the day she finished, and she just got back from her Edinburgh run.
Oh my God.
She was not well, and she just wanted to cry. So I'd actually broken mine up into half-day sessions.
Right.
But it was still, you're so bored of your own voice.
And trying to keep it interesting.
Well, yeah, I was like, in the beginning, I was really like lively and like really acting out the words. And then at the end of each day, I'd be just like...
just monotone.
I just want to get this page done.
Turns into a relaxation tape rather than a...
Well, the other thing is talking about money, and we must go in a sec, is for an audiobook, they pay you per finished hour. So they don't pay you for how long you've taken to do it. They pay you for how long the actual finished audiobook is.
Oh, shit. So
it pays to try and do it really quickly.
Yeah.
Or not speak quickly, but do it efficiently in one take. So every time they stop you and they go, no. I think you'll find that normally you say after, but this time you said after, and you're like, oh my God.
Mate, come on. This is my book. I say it how I like. Get on with it. This has been great, Rosie. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Look after yourself.
Thanks, Rich.